Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to a brand new episode of A Definitive Discussion Rebooted, my talk show podcast where I get a whole bunch of great people from all over the internet and various corners of geek culture. Bring them on the show. We deep dive into a fun subject, fun topic, or something to discuss, to give you guys a lot of food for thought and something that you guys are going to enjoy. If you haven't checked out any of the previous episodes, I highly recommend that you do so. I had Arcanic Artistry, the CEO of that little company, on the show not too long ago, talking about artists, talking about conventions, talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Let me know also down below in the comments section if you guys want to see certain guests, certain topics discussed, and all that jazz. And don't forget Patreon, okay? Join up with the Patreon page, okay, at the $1 tier or higher, because you get all that exclusive content, including the bonus EX mode episodes, which are supplements to this show. But today, I got another special guest, one that I've only met recently within the last couple of months, but I got Valensky Sylvain. Again, I knew I was going to mess up the name. You see what I'm saying? Valensky Sylvain, okay? He does guest relations at a number of different events and conventions. So since we were talking about cons not too long ago, I figured I asked him if he wanted to come onto the show and chat it up with me. Valensky, what's good? I mean, how you been?
It's easier to just say V.
V, yeah, there you go. I'm gonna call you V now because I know like I said before, to give you guys a peek behind the curtain, I knew I was gonna mess up his name, and I was like, okay, I got this, and I didn't have it. It was like, You see what I'm saying?
All right. Thanks for having me on the show, Jake. It's fantastic that you asked, and I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Again, you have a lot of knowledge about conventions, and again, like I mentioned before, we've only met recently, even though we've been going to a lot of cons down here, down in Florida, South Florida, Central Florida for a while, but we have two different perspectives on the convention scene, a little bit more so than just regular attendees, and I figured it'd be cool to kind of dive into some of that stuff. Now, you do a lot of guest relations, a lot of behind the scenes work with a lot of conventions. Give everybody a little bit about what exactly you do with them.
Okay, so basically, for 3 or 4 of the bigger anime conventions in Florida, I am the guest relations director. So the guests, the cons come to me and say, "Hey, this is our theme for the year. This is our budget for the year. What type of guests can we get within that budget?" And then I go and find guests that I feel that are not only going to be newsworthy, but are also going to be complimentary guests to the con and represent the con in the right way.
So pretty much, for all the people that are a little bit more naive listening to the show, whenever you guys get a bunch of guests and there's certain guests that are not there that people want to see, they go complain to you or everybody else about it, right? In some way.
Correct. Correct.
I mean, that's looking at it lightly and stuff, but I mean,
yes.
Again, I can relate a little bit because in the past, I've done a little bit of organizing work for certain conventions down here. It wasn't along the lines of what you do per se, but working with trying to figure out who to bring to cons, as guests, as special celebrities, to kind of do stuff, panels and things like that. I mean, does it end up for you in your case being much more dictated by, again, the budget that you have, the money and the resources you have available, or more so the popularity or in the feedback from fans?
It's both. The popularity and feedback of fans tell us who they want to see. And then depending on what that guest is willing to come for, obviously it's always a negotiation, and some guests are very stickler about what they're willing to come, and some will be willing to negotiate depending on the perks that come with it. So again, that's there's tons of times that guests want to be they always want a Chris Sabat or somebody like that, and Chris is fantastic. He's an amazing person. He's amazing with guests, but he may not be amazing for the budget for the con that I am working for at that time. So then the realities are, I try to find I try to fit the theme of this year's con to what the fans are looking for, to what the convention chair and the higher ups are telling me, hey, this is where we can fit.
So in your opinion, for doing this for a while, do you find that sometimes either the smaller cons or the big cons tend to be a little bit much more easier or more difficult when doing stuff like that? Because I would imagine with the bigger event, you have a bigger budget to work with and a little bit much more breathing room for certain stuff like that.
There is a little bit more breathing room with the bigger cons and a bigger budget, but at the same time, the guests know that it's a bigger con, so they're less willing to negotiate in their rates.
Do you find it a little bit more difficult than when you're working with smaller events? And again, maybe not like as big as like a MegaCon or SuperCon or something like that. Maybe along the more smaller ones, maybe medium or smaller size, where that becomes a little bit of a chore or a little bit of an annoyance. You know, especially when you start wanting to get like some of these cons to be a little bit much more bigger down the line, so we can have more events like that.
Yes. Some guests won't come to a mid-tier or smaller level con because of that. Because at the end of the day, we're taking them away from their family. We're taking them away from their work to come to be with the con. And the con can also be very stressful because, as you know, Robin Williams is one of them. Quite a few actors are very much introverted. And so when they come, they have to be around all these people. That's a lot of energy that they have to expound to be the right type of guest for the attendees to enjoy, because it's all about making sure the attendees have a great experience. And if the actor himself is expelling all of that energy to make sure the attendees have a great experience, then it should be worth their time.
Yeah.
And sometimes if they look at it and they'll be like, hey, to be good, it's a small con and to be, whatever, to be with fans, but at the same time, I could stay home and make more money. That's always the thing that and a lot of times for me, sometimes the guests come they do me favors to come for the smaller cons because they know I'll treat them right and they'll have a great time. Yeah. But I can only bank on favors so much. And sometimes I don't want to burn the favors. So there's that delicate balance of, is it going to be worth it to the actor to come out to this con and make sure that the guests and the attendees have a great experience?
I mean, how does one juggle that? Because I mean, again, that those are all valid reasons for one reason or another. It's that a person won't go or will go to an event, which is good, especially when, again, you build up those relationships, those professional relationships over time, for people that you meet at various events and stuff. But as someone that's like organizing that stuff, like, how do you juggle all that? Like, again, I can imagine how stressful it is when you want an event to get a little bit bigger or you want to provide like a certain amount of stuff for a certain theme and it just doesn't work out that way.
Right. The juggling comes from the purse, the people that hold the purse strings. So at the end of the day, if the guest says, hey, I can only come at this amount, and if the con chair or the board of directors say, we want this guest, then if they have to come out of pocket a little bit more than they were willing to, then it is what it is. But if they're not, then, I have to tell the guest that we can't, and then we move on to something else. I don't want to be insulting to a guest at any point in time and say, hey, I know you're worth this much. The con can only afford this much, but they're not willing to budge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, that's economics really is what it is. A lot of these actors or celebrities really, that they have to maintain their value. Obviously, they want to get the most that they can. That makes the most sense for anybody in any sort of profession. If you could think of any examples without giving specifics of where that really treaded that line at any point.
There was and I won't say which con or which guest, but there was a guest whose rate was at 10K, and the con really wanted them to come, but at the same time could not afford that 10K. I was able to make it work because that guest liked to golf. And so, they also, I ended up turning it into a family vacation for that guest so that they could come within the budget that the con was willing to make it work for them.
That's got to be a funny conversation. Like, yo, by the way, you could come here for this rate, but check it out. They got golf. Like that's got to be hilarious.
Yes. Oh, that comes with the personalization with the relationships. If I know a guest is going to like golfing, or if it's going to want to go, say if they come into Orlando, they want to go to the parks, or they have family that are in the certain state and they would want to visit the family or have the family come to the con to hang out with them. Those are all perks that I can be part of the package to incentivize them to come.
Now,
because yes, they all want to be with their fans, but like I said, that's a lot of energy and time. Sure. And they're coming to work and sign autographs and be at a table and do panels and all of that. So they're basically working on the weekend that they should be off or with family or doing something else. So they're coming to the convention, that plus the travel, all the stress of the travel and staying in a hotel, all of that factors into whether they want to come or not. So if the perks are good, regardless if they're getting the money that they want, we make sure that the perks are also good so that they have a great time all themselves. So the experience is great for them and the experience is great for the attendees.
That was going to lead right into my next point, is that, when, again, as someone who has been a guest and has also been media in various different roles in different events, I mean, when someone goes there as a guest, like, usually what's the expectation for like what they do? Because you mentioned panels, you mentioned autographs, you mentioned other events and stuff, but like, is there like a checks and balances with how much that a certain guest can do, or is it different for every guest? Because I usually see a lot of different celebrities, again, let's say just for argument's sake, voice actors, they'll go, some of them will do like a panel or two and then they'll be done with it, while others will do like a lot of stuff throughout the weekend. I mean, how is that usually balanced out, or how is that figured out beforehand?
It's balanced out by the contracting negotiations. Some guests only will do one panel a day plus the signings, and if it's a signing con, say for instance like MegaCon or any of the big cons where it's mainly a dealer room and then it's mainly a signing con, then that is what they're obligated to do: one or two or three more panels while they're there, and then sign the rest of the time. Yeah. Whereas a smaller con, it's more about the opportunities that the fans get to see them, the panels, the programming. The smaller cons are way about the programming. So then the guests that are coming to smaller cons know that they need to at least do one, maybe two, depending on the special, like the themes. Take LumiCon, since we discussed LumiCon. LumiCon had the Final Fantasy Ball. So the guests that were part of the Final Fantasy knew that they were also going to be part of the Final Fantasy Ball. So that's above and beyond their regular, panel and the regular amount of panels plus the signings that they're contracted to do.
Now, stuff like that I think is fun. Again, like when we were there for Lumi not too long ago, that was fun. But I can imagine, like, being part of other events like that at other conventions and stuff just adds on to more of the fun for some of the guests that go. But I also want to ask you this, because I think this is also important to touch on. When figuring out all these different things and, planning things out, controversy is always a thing that just pops up, for whatever reason. It could be a million different reasons online or offline and stuff. When you're trying to figure things out and something happens, so like with a certain guest that you want to bring there or whatever might be the case, I mean, does it throw a real big monkey wrench into everything? I mean, how does one deal with that? Does everybody go to DEFCON 5 or everybody just like brushes it off? I mean, what is that like?
There's different levels of controversy. So there's different levels of what we have to do depending on that controversy. If it's a controversy that is, say this guest canceled. Yes, if it's an insane levels of controversy and we feel it would be a detriment to the con itself, then I propose that the guest, if we've already given the guest an invite before the controversy, then that is something we need to discuss. But if it's just in the preliminary phases of, hey, we would like this guest and I haven't even reached out yet or anything, then I just don't reach out.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that totally obviously makes sense. But I'm also curious as like, okay, what about when things happen, during an event? Because obviously, we're all mature here, everybody listening to this, things happen for whatever reason. I mean, how does one deal with that after fact? I mean, obviously common sense would be like, maybe don't invite that person back, or like, there's like conversations that have to be had about, settling up in certain things. Like, let's say like a guest, just something really stupid, like really bad, that just is like, okay, people have a certain impression about the convention or the event at that point. I mean, does that usually, like, is there like a process with dealing with that type of stuff?
Yes, and usually my guest relations team will be a lot more on point to make sure that doesn't happen, especially not at the con. So the people that I hired to be guest relations know that part of their job is also to protect the guests from themselves, because that's, everybody's partying, everybody's having a good time. Things can happen. Their job is to also protect the guests from themselves, not only the attendees and the guests, but the guests from themselves. But then if something does happen, then the protocol is to come to me. Then we work it out, and then I discuss it with the whatever the situation is. I bring in the proper authorities, and then we figure out if it's something that needs to be done there at the con or it's something that needs to be done after the con is done.
which is
and
good.
then we can discuss it that way.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that seems like a lot of common sense stuff and whatnot. Shifting
Right.
gears, I want to ask you about smaller guests because everybody, when they hear convention guests, they usually think voice actors, they think celebrities, they think all this other stuff. But then also you have this other facet of it, which you get cosplay guests, you get YouTuber guests or influencer guests, which is a whole nother avenue when it comes to these types of things. And again, as someone that has been a guest at events and stuff, or wants to be a guest at more events and such, I mean, what is the outlook with that, from your perspective? Because obviously followings and numbers, I think, play a big part of it. But what about those, for me or for anybody else, for example, that does a lot of work, within that scene, maybe goes and does a lot of convention panels and stuff like that? I mean, what's the perspective and the outlook on that?
Again, getting into booking more influencers and cosplayers and things of that nature. And unfortunately, most of the time, my guests, my crew is used to dealing with actual voice actors and media guests. So cosplayers have a different type of needs, and YouTubers usually are brought in depending on the type of programming they can bring to the table.
Yeah.
Like, you are very important to the gaming community and stuff like that. That's why I even told you should come out to EXPCon and things of that nature. So what the YouTubers or the potential guest brings to the table is also of value to whether they come as a guest or whether they're just going to come as panelists or things of that nature.
Yeah. So
a lot of times that is outside of my purview. I'm just told by the con chair that, hey, we're bringing in these guests and this is what they need from you, to be aware from that. And so that usually it's what they have. They've negotiated with the con chair themselves. They have their own deals that they're working on, and then the con chair will tell me, hey, you need to make sure they have green room access, or just that you need to be aware that they're going to be there, and if they need anything from you, help them out, stuff of that nature. But lately I haven't had to have a specific guest handler for them. Now, some of the bigger cons, like at the end of the year, there's a big con in Orlando that also has handlers for the cosplayers and for the YouTubers, the influencers. And so it seems to be going that trend also, that they are considered not just second tier guests, but that they're treated as, as well as the voice actors. Yes, correct. And which I'm completely okay with. And I would like that option to be more, because I feel that I went to a convention one time where Markiplier was one that I had to take care of, and that was crazy.
Now, I've seen them at places like PAX and stuff. So I can imagine, like, when you're dealing with people with that much of an audience or that much of, like, again, quote unquote, influence and stuff, things could be radically different than the norm for some of these events. I mean, do you usually find, like, the needs or just, like, some of the things you have to do with some of those people? And again, you use the term second tier guest, which I can understand, in this context with us talking about. Other people will be like, oh, so they're just, like, not as important as, like, these celebrities and stuff, so they get treated differently. Do you find, like, the needs and just, like, some of the things you have to address with those types of guests or those types of people to be radically different than obviously the celebrities, the voice actors, etc.? Like, is it more or less one way or the other?
And it's just different. And yes, for the growing public, there is a tier structure, even for media guests compared to voice actor guests, especially at the big conventions, because as we all know, there are some guests that are more popular than others, and there are some guests that demand more than others. So there's always a tier factor, unfortunately, of how each guest will be treated and how we come across given those perks. At the same time, I try to treat everybody equally and give as much to the brand new voice actor or brand new YouTuber, give them as much time as I would to an A-lister. But the realities are that may not always happen.
True. And again, that's just a regular occurrence with just the scene down here. The other thing, too, I think is a great way to wrap up the episode is, like, we have a lot of events down here in Florida, not just South Florida, because, again, I'm in the South Florida region. And I think you're also up north, like more towards Central and Northern Florida, correct?
Yes, correct. So I'm in Orlando.
So down in Florida in general, we have a lot of events. Like, it's like there's something going on all the time, all over the place. Do you feel like maybe it's a little bit overcrowded and, like, sometimes that makes it a little bit difficult to do the work?
Yes. Yes, it's becoming oversaturated. It's also becoming harder to schedule. Like some of the older, bigger cons are having to schedule themselves around other cons, just so that there's only so much money to go around for conventions, and and if you're bringing in a guest, like right now, one of the things that we have to worry about is we can't bring in a guest that's going to MegaCon to AFO, because then that's going to pollinate, and then it's all those exclusivities where one con wants to be the one con that this guest comes to in Florida, so that everybody knows to go to that con. And it's all about the economics. It's supply and demand. Boom, if this con is supplying these guests and this is the only place in Florida you can get these guests, then the demand will be there for those guests. You want to come get their autograph because you can't go anywhere else and get their autograph. But if there's so many multiple multimedia events going on, then it just oversaturates the market.
Definitely. And again, even for people that are attendees, it could be a real problem. Just, the amount of money to spend to get out there, obviously accommodations and stuff to see all these people, obviously autographs, it becomes a mess. And I've said that even for years, even when I first started my career, it's like, there's so many conventions down here that I want to cover them all. I want to go see them all. But it's like, how do you do that, without being a millionaire? You know what I mean? It gets real frustrating and stuff. And
attendees, we want at every con that the attendees also buy from the dealers and to buy from the artists, because we want everybody to make money and to leave happy, because the artists are just, the artist alley is just as important to us as the dealer's room. And if they're not making money and they're not feeling appreciated, then they go away feeling disgruntled, and then that's a bad mark on your convention. On your event. So if the attendees are having to spend money with artists and with the actors and with the dealer's room, and then and also to get in, but then they have to turn around next week, do the same thing, and next week do the same thing at a different con, then there's only a finite amount of money to go around.
Very true. Again, I feel like that's a whole nother conversation we could get into, which we'll probably do it now on EX mode and stuff. But V, thank you so much for chatting up with me about all this stuff.
You're welcome.
There's a lot that we could talk about. Again, there's just so much driving into this that I don't even think like one episode, 2 episodes, or even a couple episodes would be enough for it, because it's just so all over the place with the convention stuff. But where can everybody find you? You're on the social media. Are you doing stuff on social media, besides your work?
Yes, Dark Elf Films is my Instagram, so they can follow me on Instagram. I don't do the Twitterverse much, even though I am on Twitter. It's just the Twitterverse is so toxic, and I just don't need that type of vibe in my life. But I am on Twitter. You can find me at Dark Elf Films on Twitter, or at VDawg71, VDAWG71 on Twitter. I am on Discord. You can find me on Discord also. I guess you have it. Yeah. You can also find me on Facebook. If you can learn how to spell my name, you'll be able to find me on Facebook and add me, and just around at different conventions. I'm having a good time, but best way to reach me is through Instagram. I at least check that all the time.
Awesome. Yeah, you got to come hang out in my corner of Twitter, because my corner of Twitter is not as toxic as what a lot of people say, because I always hear that, because it's like, Twitter's so bad, Twitter's crazy. I was like, who the hell are you people following? Like, who are you people talking to? It's like, I'm over here talking about video games and stuff. But
I'm in the film industry, as you know, as I produce and cast and act and all that stuff. So in the film industry, you get all sorts that have opinions about stuff. They have no idea what they're talking about.
You know what the saying goes, everybody has an opinion, ...
Yes. So we have I'm in the film industry, plus the convention scene, plus the business world. And so and right now Trump is a huge debacle all over all the Twitterverse. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'm just
good. Like, I'm good. I'm good over here, guys. You got this. Like,
exactly.
But anyway, thank you, V, for chatting with me. Guys, let me know if you enjoyed this episode of Definitive Discussion. You see, I'm tongue twisted, people. You see what you do to me? You guys, let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Comment down below. Don't forget to like this video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And again, Patreon, $1 tier or higher, you guys are going to get the bonus EX mode that we're going to do right now. That's going up right at the time that you probably listen to this. It's already up on Patreon. But make sure you guys join up with it. Pledge over there. There's a lot of exclusive content that I do besides all the podcast episodes, the exclusive videos, early access to new videos on the YouTube channel, all the reviews, all the other podcasts, all the other vlogs that I do. There's a lot of content on there. Show some love if you can. Help me continue to do content like this all over the place for everybody. And I will see you guys again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.